This is our fifth mini lecture in the production and costs topic. In this mini lecture, we're going to talk about how long and short run production decisions differ. Remember that in the short run, we have at least one fixed input. This is usually a building, a factory, something like that. It's usually going to be capital that's our fixed input. In the long run, all factors are variable, so we can even have capital vary in the long run. So let's look at an example here. Consider a secretarial firm that does typing for hire using typists as labor and personal computers as capital. For the first set of numbers where we have our capital equal 1 PC, our first typist can do 5 letters per hour, so her marginal product of labor is 5 letters. If we hire a second typist, put together, the two typists will generate 7 letters per hour. The second typist gets us from 5 to 7. 7 minus 5 is 2. So the second typist's marginal product of labor is 2 letters per hour. If we hire a third typist, they're all huddled around one computer. Maybe the third typist is going to be useful when both of them are on break or in the bathroom. But the third typist only allows us to get 1 extra letter written per hour. And if we hire 4, 5, 6 typists, they don't add anything. Our maximum output, limited by the number of computers that we have, is 8 letters per hour. Then let's take a look at what happens if we have 3 PCs. That's our second set of numbers. First worker, total product is still only 5 letters. Doesn't seem too confusing there because she's going to be as productive in the second case as she would be in the first. She's not going to be typing on 2 separate computers at a time, is she? I mean, come on. But if we have 3 PCs, we can hire a second worker to operate that second computer, get 5 letters out of that worker. Hire a third worker, get 5 letters out of that worker. So our marginal product stays the same for the first 3 PCs. Then when we start hiring extra workers, then if we hire a fourth worker, that fourth worker can cover if anybody's on break. The fifth worker can cover if a couple of people are on break. The sixth worker just kind of stands around looking stupid. So adding more capital allows each worker to be more productive up until the capital is saturated. The long run, again, it's the time period over which all costs are variable. It's going to depend on the specifics of the firm in question. So I can't ask you an exam question that says, hey, how long is the long run? A week, a day, a year, an epoch. I can't do that because there is no one long run. But firms are going to look at how long they're locked into their decisions, and they're going to make decisions about different production processes, which economists call technologies. Technology, just all the different methods you could use to combine inputs to produce outputs. An improvement in technology leads to a reduction in the costs to produce. Economies of scale refers to a case where your average total cost is going down. When output goes up, cost per unit decreases. So take a look at the graph at the bottom of this slide. A small factory like S, it can produce 1,000 alarm clocks, and its average cost is $12 per clock. Medium factory at M produces 2,000 alarm clocks, but its costs are lower because it can get a better deal on its supplies. A large factory produces 5,000 alarm clocks, and it can do so even more cheaply. So we say in this case that production of alarm clocks shows economies of scale because the average total cost is decreasing. Short-run firms, they're on a single average cost curve because they're limited by the amount of capital that they have. But in the long run, firms can choose from different production technologies, and they're not limited by the amount of capital that they have because capital becomes variable. So the long run average cost curve is based on a bunch of different short-run average cost curves, and it's enveloped by them below. More precisely, though, we could say that it'll be the least expensive average cost curve for any level of output, because in the long run, a firm can pick and choose between different technologies. It can open or close extra factories, it can install more or fewer machines, and it can optimize its production level. Diseconomies of scale. It's the opposite of economies of scale. It's when your average total cost is increasing rather than decreasing. A firm or factory can get so big that it becomes difficult to manage. So there aren't too many of these in the real world, but it's definitely possible. Diseconomies of scale can also be present across an entire firm, not just one big factory. So firms can get too big to be manageable. We call this the Leviathan effect. Think, for example, about Amazon, which has so many different outposts that sometimes it can be difficult to have a consistent message coming out from the executives to the little people who are working in their pick and pack lines. Thing to remember, we have three different types of scale. With economies of scale, average total cost is decreasing. That means that we're in a range where marginal cost is below average total cost. Marginal cost drags average total cost down. So it's more efficient for one firm to produce most of the quantity. Think about firm L that had production costs that were 1/3 of firm S a few slides ago. If we have constant returns to scale, average total cost is on that flat part that we saw in the long run production curve. Your marginal cost is going to be equal to your average total cost, and the firm is operating efficiently, but it's likely to have some competitors. Finally, if we have diseconomies of scale, things get more expensive as we produce more of them. Average total cost is increasing. In other words, our marginal cost is greater than our average total cost. The firm is producing too much. Things are so expensive that it's losing money by producing more rather than fewer goods, so it should scale back its production. Quick review here. How does long-run production differ from short-run production? What's the impact of technology on long-run total costs? What are economies of scale, diseconomies of scale, and constant returns to scale? And how does the shape of the long-run average cost curve affect the number of firms in an industry that the industry can sustain and the market structure of the industry? We'll talk a little bit about market structure, starting with perfect competition next week.